Poor nurse got a wrong call at 3 a.m. She showed up anyway, and the single dad CEO never let her leave. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when the wrong call changed her life forever. The corridor of St. Mary's Hospital was silent except for the faint hum of the vending machine and the rhythmic beeping from a distant monitor. The night shift belonged to ghosts, and Nurse Lina Tran had learned to move like one quiet, unseen, holding herself together with caffeine and stubborn hope. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered, "Nurse station. This is Lina speaking." A frantic male voice burst through. "Please, my daughter cannot breathe. She has a fever of 104. I called the emergency line, but no one is answering. Please, send someone." Lina straightened. "Sir, what is your address?" 7th Avenue, number 615, penthouse 12. "Please hurry." Before she could clarify, the line went dead. Her pulse spiked. 7th Avenue was not in her assigned zone, but a child struggling to breathe, she could not ignore that. Without another thought, Lina grabbed her stethoscope, coat, and emergency kit and ran into the rain. Outside, the city slept under a gray drizzle. The streetlights shimmered across puddles like scattered coins. Her sneakers splashed through them as she sprinted toward the taxi stand. "St. Mary's night shift," she gasped to the driver. "7th Avenue, fast as you can." 15 minutes later, she stood in front of a towering glass building that looked nothing like a home in crisis. Security lights glowed behind marble pillars, and a black sedan idled in the driveway. Lina's heart pounded as she pressed the intercom. "This is Nurse Lina Tran. You called about a child." The door opened before she could finish. A tall man stood there barefoot, shirt unbuttoned, panic in his eyes. In his arms, a little girl clung to him, her cheeks flushed, her breathing shallow. "Please," he said, voice breaking, "help her." Lina rushed inside, forgetting to wipe the rain from her face. She set down her bag and knelt beside the couch where he laid the child down. "Her name?" "Ellie," he whispered. "She is 6. Lina placed her stethoscope against the girl's chest, listening to the rapid heartbeat and faint wheeze. "She is burning up," she murmured. "We need to cool her down. Do you have ice? Towels?" He disappeared into the kitchen and returned with what she needed. Lina worked quickly, her movements calm and precise. When she pressed the cool cloth to Ellie's forehead, the girl whimpered, reaching blindly toward her father. He took her hand, trembling. "You did the right thing calling for help," Lina said softly. He shook his head. "I thought I called St. Mary's emergency desk, but the call must have gone through a private line." Lina froze. "You mean this was a wrong number?" His eyes met hers, dark, exhausted, and filled with disbelief. "I must have misdialed." The realization hit her like thunder outside. She was standing in a stranger's penthouse, drenched, uninvited. And yet, in this quiet, expensive living room, she was the only person who knew what to do. She stayed until Ellie's breathing steadied, until the fever broke into soft sleep. When Lina finally stood, dawn was seeping through the tall windows. The man looked at her as if seeing daylight for the first time too. "I do not even know your name," he said quietly. "Lina," she answered, clutching her damp coat. "Lina Tran." He nodded slowly. "I am Adrian Blake." Something about the way he said it low, composed, familiar, made her pause. She had heard that name somewhere before, maybe on a billboard or the business channel that played in the hospital cafeteria. But right now, it did not matter. "Thank you," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I do not know what would have happened if you had not answered that call." Lina offered a small, tired smile. "Then I am glad I did." She turned toward the door, unaware that in leaving her stethoscope on the couch, she had just planted the first thread of fate that would tie their lives together forever. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds of Lina Tran's tiny apartment, painting soft gold lines across the walls. The room was quiet except for the steady tick of an old clock and the faint hum of traffic from the street below. After the night she had just lived, the world felt unreal, like she had stepped out of one life and accidentally walked into another. Her mother stirred on the narrow bed near the window. The smell of menthol ointment and chamomile tea filled the space. "You came home late again," her mother said, her voice weak but gentle. Lina smiled faintly, pouring water into a chipped mug. "I had an emergency call. A little girl with a fever. She is better now." Her mother looked worried. "You keep running out at night for people you do not even know. One day, it might be too much for you." Lina brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "If I had not gone, that child could have died. I could not ignore it, Mama." Her mother's eyes softened. "You are your father's daughter. He was like that too, always believing he could save the world." The memory stung. Her father had been a paramedic who died during a storm flood, trying to rescue trapped families. He left them with courage, but not much else. The hospital bills from her mother's illness had swallowed everything they had. After breakfast, half a slice of toast and a cup of weak coffee, Lina checked the time on her phone. She was due at St. Mary's Hospital in 1 hour for her next shift. Her shoes were still damp from the rain. She sighed, stuffed a granola bar in her bag, and tied her hair into a quick bun. The hallway outside smelled of detergent and paint. Old pipes rattled as she descended the stairs, greeting the landlord who pretended not to see her because the rent was late again. At the bus stop, she stood among office workers and delivery men. The city was awake now, loud and indifferent. Her mind kept replaying the night before, the sound of rain against glass, the child's shallow breathing, the way Adrian Blake had looked at her when he said thank you. There had been something in his eyes, a quiet gratitude wrapped in exhaustion. The bus jolted forward, pulling her back to the present. She reminded herself, it was over. It had been a wrong call, a mistake, and she would probably never see him again. People like Adrian Blake lived in a world of private elevators and guarded gates. People like her lived paycheck to paycheck, hoping the hospital cafeteria served free soup at midnight. When she reached the staff entrance, she clocked in, pinned her name badge on her uniform, and forced a smile. Inside the ward, fluorescent lights buzzed, and the smell of disinfectant hit her like a wall. Nurse Dana looked up from the chart station. "Rough night?" Lina nodded, changing into her scrubs. "You could say that." Dana laughed. "You look like you wrestled a thunderstorm." "Close enough," Lina replied, tying her mask. "How are the new patients?" Dana pointed to the board. "Room 12 needs a wound dressing, and Dr. Patel wants vitals from room 7 every hour. You good?" Lina nodded again, slipping into routine. Every step, every motion had a rhythm she knew by heart. Check vitals, record temperature, comfort a restless patient, whisper a small prayer before turning off the lights. By noon, fatigue crept in, but she kept moving. A coworker offered her a sandwich. She smiled and refused. She had learned to survive on little things, warm smiles from patients, a child's drawing taped to her locker, the way sunlight touched the sterile tiles at exactly 2 o'clock each afternoon. During a short break, she opened her locker and found something unexpected. A note, folded neatly, tucked beside her stethoscope. It read, "You left this behind last night. Thank you for saving my daughter." At the bottom, a phone number signed, Adrian Blake. Her heart skipped. She glanced around, but no one seemed to notice her reaction. Carefully, she placed the note back inside and closed the locker. Part of her wanted to call him to make sure Ellie was truly all right. But another part whispered caution. He was a stranger, a wealthy man, who lived in a different universe. She could not afford misunderstandings. Still, as the afternoon wore on, the image of that little girl's pale face would not leave her mind. Neither would the quiet gratitude in Adrian's eyes. When her shift ended, the sky outside was painted in streaks of orange and violet. Lina stepped into the fading light, her body heavy with exhaustion, her heart strangely restless. She had done the right thing, she told herself. She had answered a wrong call and helped a child. That should have been the end of it. Yet as she walked home, she could not shake the feeling that something had begun instead. Something she did not yet have a name for. That night, rain returned to the city. It tapped softly against the window of Lina Tran's apartment as she sat at the small wooden table, reading the note again. The handwriting was neat and confident. the kind that came from someone who was used to signing documents that changed people's lives. You left this behind last night. Thank you for saving my daughter, Adrian Blake. Her stethoscope lay beside the note, gleaming faintly under the weak lamp. She ran her fingers over the engraving near the chest piece. L.T. The metal felt cold, yet somehow alive, like it had carried a piece of the night with it. For years, that stethoscope had been her anchor. Her father had given it to her on her first day of nursing school, saying, "Every heartbeat you hear through this will remind you why you chose this path." When he died in that flood, she could not afford to buy a new one, so she kept using the same instrument. It was old, slightly scratched, but it worked. And now, it carried the echo of a little girl's heartbeat she had fought to protect. She folded the note and tucked it inside a small box where she kept her father's photo, a few coins, and a dried lavender sprig, her only possessions that meant more than their price. The scent of lavender reminded her of calm, of warmth, of something she was always searching for but never quite found. The next morning at the hospital, her thoughts drifted constantly. She kept replaying Adrian's face, the quiet strength, the exhaustion, the vulnerability. She wondered what kind of man he was when he was not desperate for help. By lunchtime, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. She hesitated before answering. "Miss Tran?" The voice on the other end was deep, steady, unmistakable. She almost dropped her fork. "Mr. Blake? I hope I am not intruding," he said. "I wanted to thank you properly. My daughter is better, thanks to you. I was wondering if I could meet you to return your stethoscope in person." Her instinct told her to refuse. "That is not necessary, sir. I am glad Ellie is recovering. You can simply send it by courier." There was a brief pause. "Please. I would like to see you. Even for a moment. It is important to me." His tone carried sincerity, not arrogance. Against her better judgment, Lina agreed to meet him after her shift at a small coffee shop across from the hospital. When she arrived that evening, the place was quiet, lit by warm amber lights and the low hum of a jazz song. She spotted him immediately, tall, composed, wearing a gray coat that looked both casual and expensive. But there was something humble about the way he stood when he saw her, as if unsure whether she would stay. "Miss Tran," he greeted softly, offering a small smile. "Mr. Blake," she replied, sitting across from him. He placed the stethoscope on the table between them. "I believe this belongs to you." Lina looked at it, then back at him. "Thank you. I did not realize I had left it behind." "Oh, it was on the couch," he said. "My daughter kept asking who you were." She said, "The nice nurse with the lavender smell." That made Lina laugh, a light, genuine sound that caught Adrian off guard. "Children remember everything." He nodded. "Yes, they do." His gaze lingered for a moment before he added quietly, "You saved her life, Miss Tran. I owe you more than words." Lina shook her head. "No one owes me anything. I was just doing my job." "I disagree," he said. "You went far beyond your job. You came to help because you thought a stranger's child mattered." The words caught her off balance. She looked away, stirring her coffee though she had not added sugar. "Every child matters," she whispered. "That is what my father believed." For a moment, silence hung between them, comfortable, almost sacred. Then Adrian cleared his throat. "Ellie needs a private nurse for the next few weeks. Someone gentle, someone she already trusts. Would you consider it?" Lina froze. "Private nurse?" "Yes. At my home. It would be part-time, flexible hours. You would be well compensated." Her mind spun. The offer sounded generous, too generous. "Mr. Blake, I appreciate the thought, but I have a full-time schedule at St. Mary's. I have already spoken with the hospital administration," he said carefully. "They are willing to adjust your hours if you choose to accept." She stared at him, unsure how to respond. On one hand, the money could help pay her mother's treatments and clear months of debt. On the other, working in a millionaire's house felt like stepping into a world she did not belong to. "Please, think about it," he said, his voice calm but earnest. "Ellie trusts you. That is rare for her." Lina met his eyes then, and saw something she had not expected: loneliness. It was the same emptiness she saw in patients who had lost too much to admit it aloud. "I will think about it," she said finally. He smiled, a quiet expression that softened the sharp lines of his face. "That is all I ask." When she walked home later, the city lights blurred through the drizzle. Her fingers brushed against the cool metal of her stethoscope inside her pocket. She realized that what had started as a wrong call was no longer a mistake. It had become a door, slightly open, leading towards something unknown. 2 days later, Lina Tran stood at the iron gates of the Blake residence, her hospital bag hanging from one shoulder. The mansion loomed before her, elegant and distant, its white stone walls gleaming under the late morning Sunday. She took a slow breath. Every part of her wanted to turn back, but the image of her mother's frail hands and the stack of unpaid bills kept her feet in place. A uniformed guard opened the gate. "You are Miss Tran?" "Yes," she replied quietly. "Mr. Blake is expecting you." The house smelled faintly of cedar and citrus. The silence inside was thick, the kind that belonged to places too large for the people living in them. A maid led her to a bright sitting room where sunlight spilled across marble floors. Adrian Blake appeared at the doorway, dressed in a simple shirt and dark slacks, no longer the frantic man she remembered from that stormy night. "Lina, thank you for coming," he said. "I know this is not your usual environment." She gave a small nod. "I am here for Ellie." He smiled. "Of course. She has been asking when her nurse friend would come back." A soft giggle came from behind him. The little girl peeked around his legs, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "Miss Lina!" Lina's heart melted. She knelt down. "Hello, sweetheart. How are you feeling today?" "Better," Ellie said, grinning. "Daddy said you will stay for a while." "If you want me to," Lina answered, smiling back. They began the new routine that afternoon. Lina checked Ellie's vitals, managed her medication schedule, and recorded her heart rhythm each morning and evening. In between, she read stories, braided the child's hair, and helped her draw with bright markers that soon covered the kitchen table. Adrian watched quietly from the corner of the room as laughter began to fill spaces that had been silent for months. Sometimes he joined them, awkward at first, then easier as days passed. There were moments when their eyes met, and neither of them knew where to look next. At dinner one evening, Adrian asked, "Do you ever rest, Miss Tran?" She smiled faintly. "Rest does not pay hospital bills." His expression softened. "I understand that too well." He told her, almost shyly, that he had lost his wife 3 years earlier after a long illness. Since then, work had become his shield. "Ellie remembers her mother through stories," he said, "but stories cannot hug you back." Lina listened in silence, feeling the invisible ache beneath his calm tone. "You are doing your best," she said gently. "That is all any parent can do." He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw not the powerful chief executive officer that people admired, but a man trying to hold his family together. As the days turned into weeks, the rhythm of their lives settled into something strangely peaceful. Mornings were filled with laughter, evenings with quiet conversation over tea. Adrian began working from home more often, claiming it was to monitor Ellie's progress, though his eyes always seemed to find Lina across the room. Sometimes, when Ellie was asleep, Lina would step out to the garden. The air smelled of jasmine and fresh grass. She would stand beneath the porch light, looking up at the endless stretch of city beyond the walls. Inside this world of wealth and quiet, she felt both safe and out of place, like a visitor in someone else's dream. But each time she thought about leaving, Ellie's small voice would echo in her mind. "Miss Lina, promise you will come back tomorrow." And every morning, Lina did. She did not know it yet, but the small choices she made to stay a little longer, to care a little deeper, were drawing her closer to a truth that would soon test everything she believed about kindness, honesty, and love. The weeks that followed unfolded like a quiet melody, steady, tender, and full of moments that no one planned, yet no one wanted to end. Morning sunlight filled the Blake mansion, spilling across the breakfast table where laughter had become part of the daily routine. Ellie had grown stronger. She could now climb the short steps to the garden with her stuffed rabbit in hand, her cheeks pink with life. "Look, Miss Lina," she said proudly one afternoon, pointing at a row of flowers she had planted. "They are growing, just like me." Lina knelt beside her. "That is because you take care of them every day. Flowers and hearts, they both need kindness to grow." From the patio, Adrian watched them with quiet admiration. He rarely interrupted these moments. Instead, he stood back, feeling something stir inside him that he had buried for a long time. Peace. Later that day, after putting Ellie down for a nap, Lina stepped into the kitchen and found Adrian pouring tea. He offered her a cup without words. She accepted, sitting across from him at the small counter. "You have changed this house," he said simply. "Before you came, it was just a building full of noise and silence. Now it feels alive again." Lina smiled faintly. "That is not me, Mr. Blake. It is Ellie. Children heal faster than we think." "Oh, maybe," he said, watching the steam curl from his cup. "But sometimes it takes the right person to remind us what healing looks like." His words lingered in the air, heavier than they sounded. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the rain had returned, tapping gently against the windows. Lina broke the silence first. "You must have a lot of people who can help you, Mr. Blake. Why keep someone like me here?" He looked at her, his gaze steady. "Because you are the only one who looks at me and does not see the Blake fortune. You just see a man trying to be a father." Her heart thudded. She tried to smile but failed. "That is because I know what it feels like to be judged by what you have instead of who you are." That night, she could not sleep. She sat by the window of her small guest room, watching lightning flash over the city. Part of her wanted to deny what she felt, to stay professional, detached. But another part whispered that something real was growing between them, something too fragile to name but too strong to ignore. The next morning, she found a new routine waiting for her. Adrian had moved his office desk into the living room so he could be closer to Ellie during the day. While he worked, Lina would read medical journals or help Ellie with her drawings. Sometimes Adrian would glance up from his computer and watch them with an expression somewhere between gratitude and longing. On weekends, they would drive to the park near St. Mary's Hospital. Ellie fed the ducks while Lina and Adrian walked a few paces behind. Once, she noticed how his hand brushed against hers when they both reached for the bread bag. Neither spoke, but both felt it. As days passed, the walls between their worlds seemed to fade. Lina began to forget the difference between the life she had and the one she was living now. Yet in the quiet corners of her heart, she knew peace like this could not last forever. One evening, while she tucked Ellie into bed, the little girl asked, "Miss Lina, will you still be here when I wake up?" Lina hesitated, brushing a strand of hair from Ellie's forehead. "Yes, sweetheart, I will be here." Downstairs, Adrian heard those words through the baby monitor. He closed his eyes, realizing for the first time that he no longer wanted Lina to leave, not because she healed his daughter, but because she had somehow healed him too. The morning began with sunlight and peace, but by noon everything had changed. Lina Tran was preparing Ellie's medication when the maid entered, pale and nervous. "Miss Tran, there are reporters outside. They keep asking about you and Mr. Blake." Lina froze, the pill bottle trembling in her hand. "Reporters? Why would they ask about me?" The maid hesitated. "Someone posted photos online. You and Mr. Blake at the park yesterday. They say you are his new love interest." Her heart dropped. She turned toward the window and saw the truth herself, camera flashes beyond the gate, voices shouting questions, microphones raised. A headline on someone's tablet read, "Billionaire CEO seen with mystery nurse." Adrian arrived minutes later, phone pressed to his ear, his expression tight. "I am handling it," he said to the person on the line. When he hung up, he looked at her with regret. "Lina, I am so sorry. Someone must have followed us." "This is not just gossip, is it?" she asked quietly. "This could cost me my job." He stepped closer. "I will make sure it does not. I promise." But by afternoon, her supervisor from St. Mary's Hospital called. The hospital administration had seen the news. They were reviewing her conduct for possible violation of professional boundaries. Her voice cracked as she spoke into the phone, trying to explain, but the call ended coldly. She stood in the hall, feeling the air grow heavier around her. Adrian approached. "What did they say?" "They suspended me," she whispered, "until they decide if I am fit to continue." His jaw tightened. "That is not fair. You have done nothing wrong." "It does not matter," she said. "They will not listen. To them, I am just a nurse who got too close to her patient's father." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I can fix this. I can talk to them." "No," Lina interrupted, her voice trembling. "You cannot use your influence to save me. That will only prove them right." He looked at her for a long moment, torn between anger and helplessness. "Then what do you want me to do?" "Let me leave," she said softly. "This is not my world, Adrian. I came here because of a mistake, remember? A wrong call." Ellie appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Miss Lina, are you leaving?" Lina knelt down, forcing a smile. "Not yet, sweetheart. Go back to your room for now." The child hesitated, then obeyed, glancing back with watery eyes. When Lina stood again, Adrian was still watching her, his voice low. "If you walk out that door, you may never come back." She swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "Then I hope you and Ellie remember me kindly." Before he could speak again, she slipped past him, out through the side door, into the rain that had begun to fall once more. Each drop felt cold against her skin, but not colder than the silence she left behind. Inside the house, Adrian stood motionless, the sound of the rain echoing through the hall. On the couch lay the stethoscope she had once left behind, the same one that had started it all. He picked it up, gripping the metal tightly, realizing he had just let go of the only person who had ever seen the man behind the name Adrian Blake. Rain soaked the city through the night, washing away the noise but not the ache that clung to Lina Tran's heart. She walked with her coat pulled tight, the hospital badge still clipped to her pocket, though it no longer meant anything. The suspension letter sat folded in her bag, its words heavy enough to drown her. Her small apartment felt colder than before. Her mother slept quietly, unaware of what had happened. Lina stood by the window, staring at the neon lights reflecting in puddles below. For the first time in years, she felt truly lost. The television murmured in the background. A news anchor's voice cut through the silence. Sources confirm that Chief Executive Officer Adrian Blake's private nurse has been suspended following rumors of an inappropriate relationship. Lina turned off the screen. She could not bear to hear her name twisted by strangers. She sank into a chair, gripping her father's old stethoscope, the metal pressing into her palm. "I only wanted to help," she whispered. "Why does kindness always have to hurt?" Days passed in a blur. She tried to find new work, but no hospital wanted to hire someone under investigation. Each rejection call felt like another door closing. Meanwhile, Adrian's world had begun to crumble too. Board members questioned his judgment, investors whispered about his distraction, and Ellie cried for the nurse who never came back. He tried calling Lina dozens of times, but her number remained disconnected. One night, he drove to her building. From the car, he saw her light still on. For a long moment, he almost went to the door, but fear stopped him. He had promised to protect her, yet his name had become the reason she was suffering. Inside, Lina sat at her table, reading a letter from the hospital. It confirmed what she had expected. Her license was suspended indefinitely pending a formal hearing. Her breath caught, and the paper slipped from her hands. Tears blurred her vision as memories rushed back the night of the wrong call. The little girl's laugh, the way Adrian had looked at her with quiet trust. It all felt like a dream she had borrowed, one she now had to return. Her mother woke and found her sitting in the dark. "Lina, what happened?" She forced a smile. "Nothing, Mama. I am just tired." Her mother's thin hand reached across the table, covering hers. "You have done good things. Do not let the world make you doubt that." Those words settled deep in her chest, fragile but warm. When dawn came, Lina opened her box of keepsakes, the note from Adrian, the dried lavender, and the stethoscope engraved with her initials. She packed them carefully into a small bag. It was time to move on, even if she did not know where. As she stepped outside, the early light touched the wet streets, glinting like broken glass. Somewhere far across town, Adrian Blake stared at the same sunrise, holding the same emptiness. Neither of them knew that fate was already turning again, preparing the moment that would bring truth, justice, and the chance to heal what had been broken. A week later, the city woke to a story that no one expected. The front page of every major newspaper carried the same headline: Chief Executive Officer Adrian Blake defends wrongly accused nurse. Lina Tran saw it by accident while buying medicine for her mother at the corner store. Her heart pounded as she stared at the photograph of Adrian standing before microphones, his eyes steady, his hand gripping the stethoscope she once left behind. At the press conference, he spoke clearly, every word echoing with conviction. There was no misconduct, Miss Lina Tran acted only out of compassion. The night she came to my home was because of my mistake. I dialed the wrong number, and she answered. Her decision saved my daughter's life. She deserves gratitude, not punishment. He paused, looking straight into the cameras. Sometimes the wrong call leads you to the right person. That is what happened to me. The crowd erupted in questions, but Adrian did not stay to answer. He simply placed the stethoscope on the podium, its metal glinting under the lights, engraved now with 2 words. Right, call. Lina stood frozen in the pharmacy aisle, tears filling her eyes. The world around her blurred as she whispered, "He told the truth." That afternoon her phone rang. It was the director of St. Mary's Hospital. The board had reviewed the new evidence and cleared her name. She could return to work immediately if she wished. But all Lina could think about was Adrian and Ellie. Without hesitation, she left the store and caught the next bus to 7th Avenue. Her hands shook as she approached the familiar gates. This time there were no reporters, no cameras, only the soft hum of the fountain in the courtyard. The maid opened the door and smiled. "He is expecting you." Lina stepped inside. Adrian was standing in the living room, holding a bouquet of white lilies, Ellie's favorite. When he saw her, relief flooded his face. "I was not sure you would come," he said quietly. "I saw the news," she answered. "You did not have to do that for me." "Yes, I did," he replied. "You lost your peace because of my mistake. I had to make it right." Ellie ran down the stairs, her small arms wrapping around Lina's waist. "Miss Lina, Daddy said you might come back." Lina knelt, hugging her tightly. "I missed you, sweetheart." Adrian stepped closer, his voice low. "I also missed you." For a long moment, they simply stood there, the 3 of them, framed by the golden light pouring through the windows. Adrian handed her the stethoscope. "I added something," he said. On the other side of her initials, she read the engraving. Right call, AB. She smiled through tears. "You really had this made?" He nodded. "It was the least I could do, because that night, you answered a wrong call, but it turned out to be the right one for both of us." Lina's fingers trembled as she held the stethoscope against her chest. For the first time in months, the weight she had carried lifted. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but standing there with Adrian and Ellie, she knew that sometimes fate does not call twice. You just have to listen when it does. 6 months later, spring had returned to the city. The air was warm again, scented with blooming jasmine and the promise of new beginnings. On the corner of Maple Street stood a freshly painted building with a silver sign that read, Right Call Pediatric Clinic. Inside, children's laughter echoed through bright hallways lined with drawings and handwritten thank you notes. Lina Tran walked through the corridor, wearing a white coat embroidered with her name. Her hair was tied back neatly, and around her neck hung the same stethoscope, its engraving glinting under the morning light. Right Call, A.B. She paused in front of the reception desk where a small girl was handing flowers to the nurse on duty. "Good morning, Miss Lina," Ellie chirped, her face glowing with health. Lina knelt to hug her. "Good morning, sunshine. How is school?" "Good. Daddy said I can help today because this place is for kids like me." "That is right," Lina said, smiling. "You are our best ambassador." From the doorway, Adrian Blake watched them, his expression soft. He had exchanged his corporate suit for a simple blue shirt, but the quiet confidence in his presence remained. He had become a benefactor, not just of the clinic, but of every small act of kindness that grew from it. He walked toward them, holding 2 cups of coffee. "For the hardest-working doctor in the city," he said playfully. Lina accepted the cup. "I am still just a nurse," she replied. "Not to me," he said, lowering his voice. "To me, you are the heartbeat that brought this place to life." She blushed, looking around as Ellie ran off to greet another child. "You always know what to say, Adrian. I only speak the truth." Outside, a gentle breeze lifted the curtains. The city seemed quieter now, as if the chaos of the past year had finally settled. People came and went through the glass doors, families seeking care, hope, and a smile. When the clinic closed for the day, Adrian and Lina stood by the entrance, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. Ellie skipped between them, holding both their hands. Adrian turned to Lina. "Do you ever think about that night?" She laughed softly. "The wrong call at 3 o'clock in the morning? Every single day. It reminds me that miracles do not always knock politely. Sometimes they ring by mistake." He smiled. "Then tonight, I am making the right call. No. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it slowly, he revealed a simple ring that shimmered in the fading light. Lina gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Adrian, he took her hand gently. That night, you answered a wrong call. But this is the right one. Will you marry me? Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. Yes, Adrian. 1,000 times yes. Ellie clapped her hands, laughing. I told you she would say yes. Adrian slipped the ring onto Lina's finger, then drew her close as the city lights blinked to life around them. In that moment, all the noise, the pain, the misunderstandings, everything faded into a single truth. Sometimes destiny disguises itself as a mistake, but if you have the courage to answer, it might just lead you home.